This is the earliest photo of our dad, Bill Hinde. He was about 4, and he's pictured in the lower right corner of the photo. Bill began hanging around the Sandusky Airport when he was a teenager. This was in the 20s, and it was called Parker Field. Bob Swift was a friend and an instructor who taught Bill how to fly. He soloed March 4th, 1934, when he was 25 years old, in a strange-looking plane called the Aranca C-3. This is another photo of my dad with an Aranca C-3. After his first solo, he landed in the cow pasture on the family farm where the present Hinde Field is located. His sister Eleanor came out to pose with the plane. The cows showed no interest. In 1935, Dad built his first hangar on the south side of Bose Road on the homestead. The hangar was made from native lumber, old billboard signs, and used metal. The total cost was $238. This is an aerial photo of Parker Field in the early 20s, which eventually became the Sandusky Airport, then Hinde-Dietrich, and finally Griffings Airport. Of course, it is now a huge complex called Sports Force. Getting started in Sandusky. This was 1938 to 1948 that Bill operated there. The old office of the Sandusky Airport, built by our dad in 1940. This is Bill with one of his planes. They flew in all kinds of weather. Bill Hinde, Harry Griffing, and Ralph Dietrich were hanging out at the airport. All of them were instructors. One of the early hangars built at Sandusky by the Parker brothers. In 1938, the city of Sandusky was losing money and gave up the lease. Bill went to his cousin, John Hinde, who owned the land, and asked if he could lease the land and take over the airport. Bill paid John Hinde $75 a month to lease the airport. One stipulation was that the airport only be called Hinde Airport. This was a postcard that my dad designed to advertise his business. This is Bill giving instruction to a student. Bill Hinde and Harry Griffing are the instructors for the CAA program in the area. In 1940, the Civil Aeronautics Authority encouraged men and women to take the civilian airplane training course. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Bill and Harry were given free government training programs. They were trained in aerial aerobatics and advanced instruction procedures. After the training program, Bill instructed cadets from Fenn College in Cleveland. This picture is of the instructors at the Cleveland Airport. Our dad met and married Dorothy Lindrose in Cleveland. She worked at the bomber plant. They flew back to Sandusky in an open cockpit Travel Air, which turned out to be a very cold flight. The plane is still registered with the FAA and is owned and flown in San Diego, California. After the war, in 1948, Bill and Ralph Dietrich decided to form a partnership, and now the airport is called Hinde-Dietrich Aviation. Because of the GI Bill, they had many students to instruct. Business was good. They had the Skyway restaurant built in front of the office, and the Lombardi brothers ran the food business. The ads that you see are from their business. Harry and Sue Griffing wanted their own airport, and they bought land on Columbus Ave for their Griffing Airport. This is a Christmas card that was sent out during my dad and Ralph Dietrich's partnership. Heavier airplanes were landing on the field, so Bill Sproul of Sandusky had a connection with Wagner Quarry and Howard Fisher from Diamond Fertilizer. The hard surface was finally completed. In 1947, the GI Bill folded and student business slowed down. In 1948, Ralph and Mrs. Ambos bought out Bill's interest in the airport. In 1948, Bill bought property on River Avenue for a seaplane base. This is located across from what is now Quaker State and Loop. The area was called Big Island, and the actual building is across from Louis' Bar. Bill had hired kids to dig the water line for the seaplane base. Locals, Bud Cook and Ralph Otto, enjoyed fishing from the pontoons. Shows the construction of the cement block building. Dad went to the Piper factory in 1945 and bought a new PA-16 Clipper seaplane. This was an ad for the seaplane-based service. Very reasonable rates at that time. One of his planes at Put-in-Bay, and my sister Linda, who was about 4, enjoyed flying with Dad to the islands. Because the seaplane business was too seasonal, Bill sold his seaplanes and went to work for New Departure, General Motors, moving operations to Huron. Bill's father died in 1959, and our family moved to the farm. This is an aerial view of the farm that was taken in the 30s by our dad. Bill was born in 1909 in the 1885 farmhouse on Christmas Day. The first modern era hangar on the farm was built in 1958, facing the old Bose Road. The second large hangar has a J3 Cub and a twin engine parked on the side. I remember Dad painting Huron Airport on the roof. Dad would charge $1 for airplane rides and also instruct his students, besides farming and working at New Departure. Bill had a 1940 Waco biplane, and in front of it is the 1957 Ford tractor used for farming. The Huron Reporter did an article about Dad and his aviation history. Bill kept farming and working at General Motors. By 1978, he had built 12 hangars, and there were 17 planes on the field. Bill had owned over 75 different planes and logged over 11,850 hours. He sold his last plane in March of 1993. September 1977, an Aranca C-3 visited the airport. Dad was thrilled to see a plane just like the one he had soloed in 1937. Everyone kind of felt he dressed to kind of match the plane. This is other aircraft that are at Huron Airport. The aerobatic Skybolt. This is a biplane that was built by Don Mather of Sandusky. Ben Gleason's Skybolt, which is hangared on the field. Ken Patch of Sandusky flies in with his home-built Spezio 2-holer. A Taylorcraft is taking off with a banner. This Stearman biplane was used as a military trainer. The owner is Dan Lake. Ron Stone, a Sandusky developer, had a love for warbirds. He called this plane Val. The plane was a 1937 trainer designed to look like a Japanese bomber. Ron's plane had been used in the movie Tora, Tora, Tora. Ron is coming in for a landing. My dad loved seeing the military planes on the airport and built larger hangars to accommodate them. Ben Gleason owned and hangared his Aranca Champ at Hinde Field. They were built in the 40s in Middletown, Ohio. The Cessna Skymaster was a twin-engine civil utility plane, also called a push-pull, due to having propellers mounted in front and back. It was also used for observation during the Vietnam War. Crop dusters. These were employed by local farmers, and they used the runway. Bill had put an 80-octane fuel pump in, and he purchased an old tram from Cedar Point for the guys to hang out in and talk aviation. Bill loved Chrysler LeBarons. This is one of many that he had, and it's parked in front of Ron Stone's military version of a Cessna. Ron Stone's Beech AT-11 was a Army, Air Force, World War II bombing and gunnery trainer. Another military Skymaster from West Liberty, Ohio flew in. Ron Stone's T-28. This is a military trainer in the 50s that was used for training Navy and Air Force pilots. A BT-13, another military trainer based at the airport. The Ford Tri-Motor Tin Goose flew in, and the production of the Ford Tri-Motor was started by Henry Ford in 1925, and 199 were built. This is an AT-6 owned by Earl Reisner, and it was snowed in before we started plowing the runway. This is the EAA organization, and the EAA was founded in 1953 for men who were interested in building their own planes. Now, any aviation enthusiast can join the club, whether they own a plane or just are interested in aviation. Vintage warbirds, classics, basically anything that flies. Some are there to learn how to restore, and other members will help them out. Some meetings are instructional, where they will study welding techniques. Bill loved having the aviators around, so he donated the use of an addition on his house for the EAA members to conduct meetings. The EAA Chapter 50 built the planter with their logo on the front. Meetings and sponsored aviation scholarships to local students. Every year, Ben Gleason would invite the veterans and treat them to a steak lunch. These are pictures where the EAA has invited Boy Scouts to learn about aviation. They would have basic ground school instruction, sometimes using a simulator to earn their aviation merit badge. The Boy Scouts would also get a ride in one of the members' planes. And this also was a camping out experience at the airport for the boys. Ben Gleason, the chapter president, is giving more aviation information to the Boy Scouts. A fly-in picnic event in the 90s, and the pictures of the planes that flew in. This is Bill's 85-year legacy continuing. Is a picture of the airport in the 90s. This is Bill's aerobatic Citabria, which was one of his favorites. visual of the east-west runway that is 2,500 feet long and 90 feet wide. Having a grass strip is more favorable for the vintage aircraft that are based here today. The roller was designed by my dad and is still used by Joe, my husband, to keep the runway smooth. My husband Joe has been maintaining and making upgrades to the airport for the past 25 years. He has refurbished the older hangars, put doors on the open T hangars, and built new hangars. An Aranca Champ from the 40s. This one is owned by Chris Lunhart, and he is in one of the newer hangars. This newer hangar even has a man cave. This vintage J3 Cub is owned by Dr. Rick Keller, and it is often seen in one of the newer hangars. Both of our sons soloed. Scott is on the right and was 16, and he soloed our 150 Cessna before having his driver's license. Michael was 18 and is standing with their instructor, Don Mather. Michael started up a motorcycle salvage business, and Scott works for the business and also started up on the side a business of selling used aircraft parts. This is a view of Scott's hangar from across the farm pond. He continues to fly today. I want to thank Allison Wilson for helping to preserve Bill Hines' aviation history. This program has kept alive many fond memories. And a thank you to A.J. Dufresne for all of his audio work today.